So we are at that point where we have our closing keynote, who wants to just make a few remarks. And I do want to just introduce her briefly. Joelle Gamble is the director of the Roosevelt Institute's National Network of Emerging Thinkers and Doers. For those of you who don't know Joelle, under her leadership, Roosevelt has dramatically increased the number of student policy change efforts it supports. So for the students here, that's certainly relevant to you. One other final note about Joelle is she has been named one of the 30 women under 30 who are influencing the 2016 election. And with that, I introduce Joelle Gamble to take the stage.
Good afternoon. How is everyone? Oh, yes. I actually heard y'all. Usually by this time, people are like, I'm good. So it's a great honor to be here. I stand here as someone who is newer to the movement that we've been talking about today. I'm 25, and so I'm here to share some of my experiences as someone who's a part of an emerging generation. But I'm so grateful to be able to follow some of the distinguished speakers who have spoken throughout today. It's been truly inspiring. Just to tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from, my first presidential election was President Obama in 2008. It was a time in which I felt hope in the political process. I was excited. I was registering voters. But it was also a time of great economic uncertainty, right? I grew up and graduated from college into a world that didn't live up to the promises that I thought I would have when I grew older. Go to college, get a good job, not have thousands of dollars in student loan debt. And so the reality is a lot of folks in my generation are living in a time where we don't feel like all of the hard work that has been put in before us and that we put in is reaping what we thought it would. And I'm sorry to say that I think that some of the statistics that we've been talking about today say that that is a little bit true. When women started to enter the workforce, it was a powerful statement for the potential for equality, but oftentimes it was also out of necessity. And now we're living in a time in which wages are stagnating, so even the impact of women entering the workforce is not actually lifting up communities across the country. All of the hard-fought victories for reproductive justice and access in this country are being rolled back constantly, as some of the panelists have mentioned earlier today. And we're going through a presidential election in which the misogyny is so thick, it's almost the air we breathe. I'm glad that it's causing a lot of young women to step up and vote, but at the same time, it weighs on all of our spirits. That's not to say that progress hasn't happened. The progress that has happened and that a lot of the women who spoke here today have helped to shape my very own life. For me, politics and the politics of gender justice is personal. So let me tell you a little bit about how I grew up. When I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut. I was a nerd. I would run around my neighborhood with a bike helmet covered in aluminum foil and an old lab coat that my mom hot glue gunned an American flag to. I wanted to go to the stars, explore the universe, see what was out there. And the reason why a young black girl could dream to be something literally out of this world was because of a woman named Mae Jemison, who was the first black woman to go into space. She was a pioneer, but she wasn't just a representative. She knew how change happened. Impacted by the civil rights movements, she said, the best way to make dreams come true is to wake up. When I went on my first college visit, I was in 6th grade. My parents are very good parents. And we went to Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. I learned about the civil rights movement and all of the black women who had come before me. And in addition to Mae Jemison, I gained a new hero, Shirley Chisholm. As the first woman, as the first black woman elected to Congress, the first to run for a major party's nomination, as someone who was unbought and unbossed, she was everything to me. She, to me, represented the potential that I could have to fight for my own community and to use my own voice to make a difference, something that I hadn't thought about before. And now, as a young professional, I have the great honor of working at the Roosevelt Institute. I serve as the national director for our network of emerging thinkers and doers, working with young people all across the country. And I get to work at a place that's named after Eleanor Roosevelt, a woman who I greatly admire, a pioneer for human rights and the marginalized in a time where political elites were not where they should have been on a lot of issues. And she taught me that you must do the thing you think you cannot do. All of these women that we know and admire helped to shape me and who I am today. But there are also thousands of women who are unknown, who have shaped women across the country who are now activists today. My mother, who I've already mentioned is a great mother, she took me on a college visit when I was in 6th grade. But she was born in Columbus, Ohio, to a family with 8 younger brothers and sisters. She worked hard, but couldn't go to college. She joined instead the United States Marine Corps. She became a drill sergeant. She is a very, very strong woman. And she taught me that you must always do the best you can. When it came time to work on the drill field, to do the physical trainings that you were supposed to do, she got taunted by her male counterparts who said, "Women can't do the physical training that we do." And instead of giving up, she did the best she could, and she completed their physical training too. My mother is the daughter of my grandmother, who marched in the Montgomery bus boycotts down in Alabama. And I'm a little emotional talking about this because she didn't open up to me about it until earlier this year. She told me about all of the times where she was spit on, when people beat her up, when her shoes wore through because she walked so long. And she told me that she walked so long so that I could walk farther. And to me, that's what I want to talk about today. And that's what matters for my generation. Given all the progress and the hard work that so many others have put in to move us towards equality, how do we go farther? How do we build on what work was put in before us? And for me, I was so inspired by what the women on panels today talked about, whether it was Alondra Nelson talking about how the rights and rules don't always affect everyone equally. We have a responsibility to make sure that they work for everyone. Or whether it was Anna Eleanor Roosevelt, who said that in order to advance equity, we need to have conversations that are multi-generational. And I believe that to be true. And for me, as a young Black woman, I think we need to have justice that changes the paradigm of gender. I grew up and went to college with folks who are not currently in the conversation on equality and justice in this country, folks who identify as transgender, for me as a cisgender woman, I must be an ally to them and to lift them up as well. And that's something that we don't talk enough about, that we need to talk a lot more about. That it's not just a traditional role of woman that we should be working towards, but instead for all gender. Gender that doesn't fit the stereotype of what we consider male or female. And for me, representation isn't enough either. We've seen what happens when you only focus on one person to fix a whole system. While it's been really, really important to have those people to inspire other generations to act, one person can't change a system that has been set up over years and years to keep others down. Because only some will rise, but not all will rise if we only focus on a few. And for me, as we've been talking about today, we must also be intersectional in how we break down barriers to build systems that work for us all. We cannot forget the words that were proclaimed by Sojourner Truth in 1851 when she said, "Ain't I a woman?" Racial justice and gender justice are inseparable. We cannot limit our idea of a woman advancing in the workplace or in the economy to just the conversation of, can we have it all? What about the women who are wondering if they even have enough? And one person, one beacon of success is not enough. By focusing only on one person, we conceal our collective responsibility and our collective power. And for me, as a member of the millennial generation, that means a lot. Collective action is what has made change in this country. And for my generation, we have a unique opportunity. There are 80 million young people in this country right now. And there are 44% people of color. That's a lot of people who need justice and can be moved to fight for justice. And so for me, this is no small task. It requires vision and persistence and collective action. The ones that Mae Jemison showed us all, the ones that Shirley Chisholm showed us all, and the ones that Eleanor Roosevelt showed us all. And I believe that even though it can be hard to see hope in this political environment we live in, with the vitriol and the misogyny, we still must go forward. Even though we're sick and tired, we must remember what Fannie Lou Hamer said. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and so we must act. And that's all I have to say.